Kings and Queens, Your Majesties, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for returning. Trust you and yours are well and you're loving yourself and all just like always. Many thanks to all of you for the support you give to the channel. Thank you so much to our channel members, to our anonymous supporters, to all of you my esteemed subscribers. You're loved, celebrated, and of course appreciated. All right, Majesties, as we are all aware that a lot have been happening in the continent recently that mainstream medias will not put out there for you. That's why I'm here for you, right? So we'll be talking about some few things that have been happening, especially around the economic stability of the mother continent. And this is why I want us to delve a little bit into these whole tax issues happening. There have been information flying around within the continent that the UN, United Nations, has sent tax forces to countries in the continent of Africa. And the question that will rise in the mind is, why should the United Nations send tax forces? This is how far the grip they hold on the motherland is. I tell you, my kings and queens. It's unfortunate, but it is a fact, okay? And also we will see how, the tax implementation or the tax policies of the president of Nigeria, how the citizens are, accepting the decision that he had made, because he said as of next year, there will be tax imposed on every person doing business in Nigeria. And how do the people get this news? We'll also delve right into that. And also we'll look into the United Nations sanction in Madagascar. We're all aware that there have been recent military takeover after the protest by the Gen Zs, the youth, because of the situation of the country. And the African Union had come out to, register their disappointment with the military of Madagascar. And we now see that the United Nations as well is not happy with what is going on, and they are advising that the military return power to the democratic leader that was in power. So let's listen to some of this information and we will, deliberate upon it as it goes, Your Majesties.
The UN has been sending Western tax collectors to Africa to force the continent to pay their foreign debts, and this organization is called Tax Inspectors Without Borders. And if you think this isn't real, here is their website. They are implementing sales tax, minimum tax rates, taking African businesses to court for tax evasion, and they are bragging about the billions they collect from the continent. What the UN does is they send forensic tax auditors from the West to African nations to close loopholes, audit businesses, and implement tax laws that extract as much money as possible from the local population in order to pay back IMF and World Bank loans. And they are very good at what they do. Tunisia was one of the first countries to work with the UN tax collectors in 2015. And since then, the Tunisian government has increased tax revenue over 50% relative to GDP. Recently, you've probably seen different tax reform laws in West Africa, Kenya, among others, and all were pretty unpopular, but they were implemented with a carrot and stick methodology. If the African leaders don't work with the Western tax collectors, they face sanctions. But if they play nice with the tax collectors, they get more loans from the IMF. And you've probably figured out this game already. The West is getting the African nations to run up large debts, then training the African governments to collect the interest payments from the local population. And that money then goes to Western banks. And in many African countries, over 70% of the government revenue goes towards debt servicing. So it's essentially a much more efficient form of colonialism. But I want to know what you guys think. Have you seen unpopular tax reforms in your country? Have they increased your cost of living, or have they had a positive impact? Let me know in the comments below.
January 1st, 2026 is not just Happy New Year for Nigerians, it is Happy New Tax Year. As an individual, what must you know about the new Nigerian Tax Act of 2025? Who and what will be taxed? Income, profits, gains of an individual resident in Nigeria. Incomes and profit and gains from an employment income whereby the employment has been partly or only performed in Nigeria and has not been taxed from their source country. If you earn 800,000 naira and below, you pay 0%. For your first 2.2 million, you pay 15%. For your first 9 million, you pay 18%. For your first 13 million, you pay 21%. For your first 25 million, you pay 23%. And if you earn above 50 million, you pay 25%. The total income of an individual will only be taxed after eligible deductions have been made. What are the eligible deductions under the new Nigerian Tax Act? Number one, contributions towards the National Housing Fund, contribution towards the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, contributions towards the Pension Reform Act, contribution towards life assurance, or even interest on loans paid for mortgages, for instance. There are some benefits and relief under this new tax act. What are the benefits? What are the reliefs? Number one, rent relief. You are given a rent relief of 20% of your annual rent paid, or 500,000 naira maximum, whichever is lower. If you are also a business involved in agricultural production, livestock, forestry, dairy, etc., you do not pay tax for the first 5 years from commencement of business. Organizations involved in charitable, educational, religious activity of public character, where the profit or gains of that institution does not come from a trade or business, you do not pay tax. Wages and salaries of military officers, no tax. Pensions, gratuities of people paid according to the Pension Reform Act, no tax. If you have further questions on how the Nigerian Tax Act of 2025 affects you as an individual, either resident in Nigeria or your employment income is tied to Nigeria, leave a comment.
All right, Majesties, and about the tax issue, I think that was what affected the decision that the Nigerian government put in place about tax reform as well. I keep saying it here almost all the time that I believe that Africa has the power to govern herself. Africa has the money to take care of herself. Africa do not need to borrow money from anybody. Okay? In as much as some of you might have different opinion, maybe because of what mainstream media has said to you, we are saying that all these loans, IMF fund and the World Bank loans that are given to countries in Africa is never for the development of Africa. The more Africa keep tying themselves to these loans and funds coming in from the United Nations and then from world powers, the more that African country will be sinking in debt. Just imagine a foreign powers coming into your nation, taking charge of businesses, people's businesses, okay? Taking charge of property. I believe that Nigerians are gradually becoming aware of this situation. And that is why somebody said, and I'm going to read out to you. He said that Nigeria is next on the radar of the US military industrial complex and political sites. Nigeria is next on the radar of the US military industrial complex and political elites. Funny how some Nigerians are almost begging for it. Look at Iraq, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, and Gaza. All your spare parts shops, churches, mosques, bear parlors will be gone. And this is in connection to all these things that is beginning to happen now. It's unfortunate that the African economy cannot boast of being independent and funding themselves from, from the beginning to the end, from the scratch to the end, from the ground to the top. I believe this will not come as a shock to you, that Nigeria still borrows money from France, even as we speak. Because as I was going through the news some days ago, I saw that the government of a state in Nigeria had agreed to liaise with the French government giving them some amount of euros, and they are accepting this money to develop something in that particular state. Now we are here talking about how France is going down, France is in debt, France is doing everything to see that it get a hold on a particular place to, milk out from. And we have Nigeria still delving deeper into France. And while those journalists were analyzing the situation, he said something that I was happy about. And I was happy that we have people who still think that way in that particular level. That why should Nigeria go borrow money from France? They are giving this money to rest. He was really bitter about the situation, as I was bitter. So you see the situation we are in. Now, when the military leaders of the Sahel had accused the Nigerian government of working with France for the destruction of the Sahel, a lot of persons were like, maybe it's not true, we do not know what we are seeing. But this information came in confidentially. We are sure what is going on. How can the French government borrow money to the Nigerian estate in the Nigerian estates in Nigeria to, achieve or actualize a particular goal without the Nigerian government being involved with them? Especially when France is in a situation that she is today. France is struggling to survive, but is still ready to borrow some money to a state in the country called Nigeria. This shows how the bond is. So the president of Niger was not wrong with what he was saying. He is sure, he said it with his full chest then, that Nigerian government is working with the French government. And that there is even a place in Nigeria that the Nigerians cannot even access because it has already been given to France. I don't know what is the color of our problems as Africans at this point, where we should take hold of our freedom, our liberty by our hand. It's unfortunate, Your Majesties. About the fear of sanction on Madagascar because of a military takeover, this is something that we expected, because it was the same thing that happened to the Sahel when the Sahel took over power, when the Sahel leaders took over power from the democratic leaders that were present. The whole world was against the Sahel. Oh, return back power to democracy, return back power to democracy. A lot of Africans also never believed in the Sahel until very recently that a lot of people begin to see the effort that these leaders began to put in, and they became a little bit relaxed and trusting the policies and decision makings of these Sahel leaders as of now. Now, I keep saying it here, where are all these unions? Where are all these organizations? You understand? Where were they when Madagascar was going through hell? When the youth of Madagascar were talking about the situation, that they were tired of the economic instability of the country, where were they? Last time I checked, this particular country was a colony of the French government. So where was France when the situation of Madagascar became so unbearable for those living in that country? And now, the moment something good begins to happen, anyway, we are only hoping that this military leader is the same as the one in the Sahel, so that we will be fully satisfied that we have, four, capable leadership in the continent of Africa, with the Sahel having 3 and Madagascar joining them becoming 4. Now, we're not talking about Guinea, because we really do not understand what the president of Guinea is really doing at this point. So that's why I don't really talk about Guinea. But the people are happy. You saw how happy the youth were when they saw that the military, was working with them. Even up until now, they are so happy that Michael took over power. That's the military leader of Madagascar. Took over power. And the first thing he did while he came to power was to revoke every dual citizenship that those in government have. And saying that he is not ready to accommodate any government officials having dual citizenship. And this situation is one of the situations that is eating deep into the continent of Africa, especially those in politics. When you talk about the government workers, officials, and political leaders, they are always with dual citizenship. Every well-to-do individuals in countries in Africa always want to have a dual citizenship, so that when they spoil where they originate from, they can run to the place where they had acquired. And that is the reason why there is no effort put in to develop Africa, because most of these well-to-do Africans have dual citizenship. And that is why they don't care what happens in Africa. They only come here, steal resources, milk out, steal their own resources which belong to them, and run away to the other land that they have purchased. So there is no genuine love even for the motherland, especially from these political leaders and those in politics, those in government. There is no genuine love anymore. They only see Africa as a farm where they come, harness, harvest, take out, and go live in their other home which they had created from the wealth and sweat of their home country, of their motherland. Sometimes when we talk about things like this and dissect it, it's so shameful. It's so shameful that the soil where you came from, the land where your life came out from, you are ready to destroy that land and go favor another place. And so he said, no more dual citizenship. And this is hitting so deep. It's hitting so deep. He just came in and then implementing things like this. A lot will not really be happy with what he's saying. Anyway, what do you think about these situations and discussions? Leave your thoughts and opinion there at the section. I'm going to see you in my next one. Until then, love yourself, love others, stay safe, stay positive always, your majesties. Bye for now.